Gorilla Comm going 10-8. What's up, people? Let's talk about effective scanning of an incident. So what I want to start talking about or sort of showcasing here is how to effectively scan an incident. And the word incident could apply to a whole host of problems out there, from disasters all the way up to societal collapse, and that's the kind of span I want to sort of go into. I want to go into pre-societal collapse and everyday shit hitting the fan that happens to everyone, unfortunately, like forest fires, riots, and shootings, and you name it, everything bad that you might hear on a public safety radio, because there's usually nothing good coming out of that radio from that perspective. So that's where I want to start, because there is sort of a procedural sort of standard operating procedure for those guys on how they sort of conduct their communications that we could all learn from, and also learn how we could follow their traffic and follow an incident from birth to the eradication of that particular incident. So I'm in the business of preventing shit hitting the fan in WOL. That's me, but I'm not naive enough to not say that we're going to catch everything and not tip over into the point of no return of societal collapse. That's the worst case scenario. Will it happen in my lifetime? I hope not, but then again, I don't want that to happen in future generations either. But you can't predict or prevent such things from happening. So from experience, the example that I'm going to use is an example that closely resembles an active war, meaning that or conflict, armed conflict or societal collapse maybe, or something to that effect, where the particular incident is very fluid in nature. A forest fire does not stay stationary in one area. As it goes through a particular forest, it consumes vegetation and goes up canyons and down gullies and into neighborhoods. It's somewhat hard to predict if the weather is all jacked up, and it's a fluid beast that just goes through the landscape of a particular area. So it's a fluid sort of moving target, and that sort of kind of resembles an active battlefield where you got your opposing teams going at it, and they're trying to get terrain. They're similar in that, and I've experienced both where I can see the similarities between those two. So that is, to me, is a perfect example. And I talk about the fire service all the time, because they're, much respect to those guys. Those guys are like, civilian soldiers out there as far as physical exertion and strategies, and we're very materialistic in nature. I always get flashbacks when I work with those guys, but anyway, that's good flashbacks, that is. But what you see in front of you is a topographical map of an incident that the rim fire last year that took out a lot of acreage. Using a scanner, I think, is like the canary in the coal mine. You'll get raw data coming out of your scanner. I think it's the first piece of comm equipment that every preparedness-minded individual should get for their family or their comm plan. If you don't have any cash, a lot of us don't. It took me 3 years to get my system sort of kind of together. But the first thing that I always had in my disposal was a scanner to listen to what's going on around me. With a scanner, you could sort of get a gauge of what equipment they're using, or frequency band that they're using, what the capability of their range is, the terrain that they're working in, whether it be the city or, in my case, rural sort of mountainous foothills area, or flat sort of valley plains like environment, and see what they use, or find out what frequency band they're using, and get a gauge of what their capabilities are. Not only that, you could follow their particular incident, because they will switch from their primary frequency into a command frequency, and then from there it breaks off into tactical frequencies. and that's pretty much how they at least in the fire service deals with these matters as far as communications and how they organize their comm plan. And that also includes the law enforcement side of the house, whether it be sheriffs, state police, or the feds. So this example here would apply to all those other disciplines, and those plans somewhat follow the same SOP or similar SOP as what the military uses. So you take all the good parts of all those services and disciplines and apply it to your comm plan, and that's pretty much what I do. For my comm plan is I use all the best qualities of those plans and apply it to my circumstance. You have your scanner programmed with all the frequencies, first responder frequencies in your area. I would set up my scanner to scan all the public safety frequencies, all the major ham repeater sites, all the FRSs, GMRS, MURS, CB. I would scan all of them, because you scan all those frequencies, you get sort of the big picture of what's going on from the professional who could describe the particular incident very professionally, to the guy screaming on the CB saying, hey, my house is on fire, please send help. And you could somewhat get the intelligence from all that traffic to give yourself a big picture of what's going on, as far as, is the police really responding at this hour, or are they being led somewhere else because there's another incident, or situations like that has happened, and I've heard it on the scanner in my area. So what you see here is a map of a particular forest towards north of me here, and these radios that are on this on their side representing a ridge line. So I'll give you sort of a 3D sort of picture of it here. The yellow tape measure there, is their main repeater site. The stack radio there is another mountaintop that's kind of higher than all the rest here, including this area here. So there's another little ridge here, one mountain, two mountain. The 38 spent shell casings represents a fire station. The little loop around the fire station represents a handy-talkie radio that has a range of 5 miles. In this case, for the fire department, it's going to be VHF, very high frequency, 150 megahertz span or band there. The dispatch center is located right here. So they get a phone call in. There's a fire and smoke reported up in this area here, and it's going towards vegetation. So it's a potential start of a forest fire. This is the traffic that you'll hear on the scanner.
The time 215, engine 44, engine 45, engine 295, engine 264, engine 294, engine 265. Those are 245. Two mountain crews, engine 10, engine 15, water tender 13. Vegetation fire on the W Ranch, Road 100 and the road. Respond on command for the WIC 0846.
They get the phone call, and then they set out that initial attack transmission over the air. So that first set of tones there is kind of like a shit hit the fan alert tone, because here they take forest fires very seriously, and they sent out the cavalry to get this thing while it's in its infancy. I mean, aircraft, bulldozers, a bunch of engines, hand crews, all at the same, all in one shot, no matter if it's only like a barn on fire or you know, an outhouse or something like that. So those series of tones will set off an alert system in all these stations here, and sound the alarm in all those stations, saying that, okay, that particular station there or engines are being called upon to take care of that problem that's up there. Now, if you see this big old paracord around the whole map there, that is the range of the repeater that they're using on this mountain here. So all these little bubbles here, these handy talky little range bubbles is 5 miles of range, but they're inside the bigger bubble here, so they have connectivity to the tower. So if this was just simplex, just going to radio, this bubble here cannot get in contact with this bubble here and all the other bubbles there, because they're sort of out of their particular ranges for their HTs. But since they're using the repeater, they switch to the frequency to the repeater, and they have connectivity with each other along with dispatch. So that is sort of like the range representation of this particular map here. So you just heard dispatch give instructions to all the stations that being involved here to go and take care of this little vegetation fire that's being handled over this way. So from the main dispatch channel, which they use for all traffic, for everything from a medical situation to saving a cat off a tree, that's their main primary dispatch channel. They cannot lock that frequency to go handle this incident that's up here. So what they have along on this mountain here is another repeater called a command channel, in this case command 4. So within that transmission, they just instructed all these fire engines to switch over to command 4. What would happen on dispatch is either a captain or another dispatcher will take over the command 4 frequency and start giving instructions to handle this fire. So that particular dispatcher is handling the fire that's on over here on command 4. And what happens to their primary dispatch channels? It goes back to their regular everyday working channel to take care of any other incidents that goes on in this area here. So in your case, if you want to follow this particular incident, you're going to have to change channel or move channels from your primary frequency that the fire department uses here and switch over to the command channel, which is a repeater, and that repeater would normally have the same range around this ring here, around this area here. So they still have connectivity to all their particular members here, all the fire engines. So all these guys are dispatched and they're en route to the incident in this location here. So now what you're going to hear next is response check back from all the units that are assigned to this particular incident. So you're going to switch frequency over to the command frequency, and dispatch will poll or take a roll call of all the units that switched over to make sure they all are on that new command channel frequency now to handle this particular incident. And at the same time, dispatch will assign them a TAC channel, a tactical channel, which will be simplex, going from radio to radio, not using the repeater.
Response check back, Battalion 215.
Battalion 215. Engine 15 is responding.
Engine 15 at 849. Units responding to 11246. Command 4 utilizing TAC 7. 0849.
So here, they're using command 4 to talk to dispatch that's way back here somewhere, and also to talk to the rest of their units here. Along with that, they will get assigned their particular division or area to attack the fire. The fire is over here somewhere. So they're lining up strategically to combat this fire. So they'll have 2 divisions so far. And a division is incident command structure terminology of a border or sort of front line. So this is Division J, Division K, and down here is Division, we'll call it W. So they split off into 2 divisions, Division K and Division W. These guys will have a division supervisor, and he'll be in charge of this front line here. And they will have a TAC channel to talk to all the engines on this line here, on TAC 7 rather. Same thing over here. Now these 2 circles are within each other, so this engine could talk to this engine on an HT 5-mile radius. but they're kind of too far to talk to these guys over here. There's a little gap over here. But these three units could talk to each other because they're overlapping the range circles. So that's not a problem. I mean, that is a problem, but it's not critical. If this division wants to talk to this division, what the division supervisor will do is, since they're out of range, they will use the command channel, the repeater, to talk to the repeater, and the repeater will relay it over to division K here, and they both have connectivity to each other. So if you put this in militaristic terms, these guys will have inter-squad communications, talking to the squad, and the repeater here will either be a longer range radio to talk to these guys here, or a VHF repeater, and that will be their sort of their net. They call it nets. So here, when you're scanning, since this repeater here is such a large area, you could hear that repeater if you're in range. But since they're the tactical channels, you would normally not hear it because that only has a 5-mile radius in this area here, and you could be over here listening to this traffic to make sure that this fire is not hitting your area there. I mean, if you're scanning this particular fire, you're not going to hear their tactical channels here, but you will hear the overall command channel, which is the instructions given to all the firefighters on how to fight this fire and to ask for resources, more personnel, or what have you. In this case, over the command channel, they will get status reports on what this fire is doing. It was caused by power lines down, which was the cause of the fire, and here's the way to get to this area here, because this is pretty mountainous and there's a bunch of ranches up here, and it's fenced off as well. So they'll give instructions on what the entrance point is, what the status of the fire is, how it's caused, do we need more resources in there to squash this particular incident.
Engine 284, for information, PG needed due to the power outage in the area. They had technicians searching for the reason the power was out. Down power line started the fire. Great. All units acknowledge power lines down for Road and River Road. P64.
64 copies, power lines down.
So the talking that's conducted with the simplex frequency or the tactical frequency would be to each other here to say, hey, pretty much boots on the ground communications, watch out, look out, and all that stuff. Whereas the command channel is used for the big picture, status reports and status of equipment coming in and stuff like that. It's really interesting how they conduct this, and they've been doing this for decades.